We are here. Welcome to our Light Codes bonus class. I hope you are so excited about tonight. I am so excited about tonight. We've got some really exciting work ahead of us. And so I want to thank you for making time in your schedule. I think it'll be just as special if you're watching later, by the way. So don't worry if you couldn't make it live. The recording will just be as helpful for you, I think, as being here live with us. I'm going to try to stay focused on what I have to present to you for the first 45 minutes. And then I want to leave the last 15 minutes for Q&A. Thank you, thank you. And so there will be time for questions at the end. I'm not going to answer questions as I go for the most part, because I want to make sure there's quite a lot I want to get through for you tonight. So I'm going to set you up. I'm going to let you know what you need, and then I'm going to begin. And it's actually really funny, because the reason I'm doing this class is that this is a subject of major fascination for me. I don't know about you, but I am endlessly fascinated about this subject. And I'm going to talk to you about how I learned what I know, and my first ayahuasca journey, which is actually where I first really was shown light codes. I had understood light codes. I knew I had light codes. I knew I had started to understand how I was transmitting them. Keep in mind, I'm going to be 45 this year. And I would say the better part of my awareness about my own light codes, what they are, how they're transmitted, how people receive them, how I share them, that's been information that I have accessed really, for the most part, in the last 5 to 8 years. So if you're coming to this and you're in your 20s or in your 30s, I think that's fantastic. It wasn't information that I was really shown until I was ready. And now I'm ready. And now I'm fascinated. And so here's what's really funny. In my fascination, I did what a lot of you do, I think, which is I was like, I'm going to buy and read every book about light codes. And I did that. And then I was like, these are terrible. Sorry, but let me save you some time. They're not good. The books that are out there about light codes and light languages, in my opinion, are disappointing. Let's put it that way. So then I was like, okay, so then I'll go to YouTube and I'll watch, I don't know, everything I can find about light codes and light languages and light transmissions and, you know, dimensional shifts. And once again, it was pretty crappy. Okay, I was like, are you kidding me right now? This is really what's out there. And so you can go ahead and do all of that, but let me just save you some time and tell you that what's out there does not really reflect, at least for me, what I know to be codes, what we're going to be talking about tonight, light codes and light languages. And some of the stuff is downright creepy. I mean, I think to myself sometimes, like, oh God, if people watched this stuff, you know what I mean, and thought that this was what metaphysical people did or what we were about, I shudder to think, no wonder they're judgmental. You know, it's a little weird and a little creepy. But we are going to talk about speaking in tongues tonight. We are going to talk about what light languages look like. We're going to talk about what light codes are. And I'm going to go through the who, what, when, where, and why tonight. Okay. So who are we and why do we need light codes? What are light codes? Where do they come from? When do we use them? Who needs to receive them? And how do we transmit them? That's kind of tonight. After tonight, if you guys are really into this and we're also going to activate 22 different light codes. After tonight, if you say, you know what, I want more, we'll do a part 2. But I think this is a really good way for us to at least get the sort of the beginning, right? Because the reality is light codes are just another way of speaking about frequencies, light frequencies and transmissions from the higher dimensions. We are in a lower dimension, no matter how you slice it. And it's frustrating for a lot of us. But we live in the 3rd dimension, which means we are bound by space and time. No matter how you slice it, you're not bound when you sleep, and you're not bound when you journey, which is why most of us light bringers and light translators, we really love being asleep and we really love journeying, because those are the 2 times when we're not bound by 3rd dimension rules. We really like being without space and without time, which allows us to go anywhere we want and to do it all simultaneously. So if you're like me, you really enjoy being outside of 3rd dimension, but here we are. And so the light codes are access points for healing and transformation. information, if you really want to know what they are. And like I said, I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about my first experience having spirit guides talk to me about light codes, which was my first ayahuasca journey. So we'll get into that too. All right. Well, I'm happy to see you. I do want to tell you I have a cold and I've taken my cough medicine, but my cough started to come back about half an hour ago. So I have tea, I have kombucha, I have everything. I'm determined to get through class with you tonight. So, but you might have to bear with me if my voice goes a little bit. So I ask for your allowance in advance for what might be a moment or two of cough. But I'm setting the intention that I will activate light codes tonight for my wellness that will allow me to get through our class experience together. And that's one of the things you can do. You know, you can actually ask to activate light codes for what you need right now. Light codes to, you know, to buy that house you've always dreamed of. Light codes to activate your own physical healing and wellness. Light codes for peace and release from anxiety. Light codes to deepen your passion and intimacy with your partner. Light codes to stop the monkey mind chatter in your head that makes it difficult for you to sleep, right? Light codes for all of the things. Oh, I appreciate it. Well, you know, it's funny. I talk for a living. And so when someone who talks for a living gets a cold, that's tricky. My voice, and this is what's interesting about tonight too. Are you ready? My voice is one of the ways that I transmit light code. My voice is one of my gifts. Not everybody has that gift, but my voice is one of my gifts. And so people seek my voice. So the two primary ways, just sharing with you what I have learned, the two primary ways that I transfer my light codes to you are through my gaze, through my ability to connect with you through my eyes. So through my gaze and you seeing me is one way I transfer code. And the other way I transfer code is through my voice. And so it's a really interesting thing when I use my voice all the time and I lose my voice, you know, and I think about what impact that has on my ability to transmit code during that time. But so it's interesting for me to tell you that because you guys are on the receiving end of my gaze when I look at you, like I'm looking at you right now. And when I look into that camera, I really do see each of you. It's very funny. I see your avatars. I see your soul behind that camera. I never feel like I'm really just talking to a camera. It's a very interesting experience. I really am looking at you. And so one of the things, it's very interesting, right? And I never thought of myself as someone who had a soothing voice. I appreciate you saying that. But my voice behind the words that I say to you is a meta narrative. Okay. And I'm very conscious of this. And so every time before I lead a class or a ritual, or even do a guided meditation like I did today and yesterday in the classes. Anytime I do anything like that, I ask the words behind my words also be in service of your highest good. Because I'm communicating a meta-narrative. That meta-narrative is code. Okay. So, and that's one of the ways that you and I connect. And that's, you know, when you say that you feel like I'm speaking just to you, I am actually speaking just to you. And I've actually had an experience in my role as a teacher of having people hear different things from me at the same time. And I attribute that to light codes. Isn't it interesting? I feel it too. And here's the other really beautiful part of it. Even though some of you're receiving my gaze all the time, and I'm not always receiving your direct gaze. And yet, when you guys come to Sage Goddess, and I meet you in person for the first time, I don't feel like I'm meeting you at all. As soon as I lock eyes with you, because we've made that gaze already, and it's somewhat intimate. It's very interesting how intimate it can be, to the point where, like, I really feel like when I lock eyes with someone, if they're willing to lock eyes with me too, it's as intimate as if we were making love. I mean, it really is, because that's my intention. My intention is to connect with you with my gaze as intimately as if we were touching physically, so that we have that level of bond and connection to each other in service of the highest good of the relationship that we're building. And so as I create, it's very interesting, right? As I create that intimacy with you and you allow it, it's pure. because my intention is purely to connect with you, to love you in an intimate way. And you can decide, and your spirit guides will decide whether that's one of the ways you transmit code is through the gaze. But it's really fascinating because when I was growing up, little kids wouldn't look at me in the eye. And I would come home to my mom and say, why won't they look at me? They'll look at me and then they look away. They'll look at me and then they'll look away. And my mom said, because it's one of your spirit gifts, is the way you look at people. When you look at people, it makes them feel naked. And some people are very comfortable with that and feel loved. And then other people feel like, I can't even do that. It's interesting, isn't it? And so when you think about that, like I have become conscious and aware of it so that I can, be conscious of how I use it. Because the thing with soul gifts is you don't want to abuse that, right? You don't want to manipulate people. It has to come from a free place of love. So the first thing I want to tell you tonight is, I know, Sherry's like, I like it. Well, it's sensual and it's sexy. And listen, this keeps life very spicy. Like the fact that I'm open to sending and receiving with my eyes allows me a level of intimacy with people that is truly magnetic, right? I mean, so when people say I've never had intimacy in my life, I'm thinking like, how is that possible? I have nearly physical intimacy with people just through the connection through the eyes. I don't have to touch anyone physically to get that level of intimacy. Yeah, no, and that is my intention, is to see into you and for you to see into me too. And so tonight, what I want you to think about is you can transmit codes almost any way, but your primary senses are the best ways to do it. So you can transmit code through touch. Think about massage therapists, right? Or that Reiki practitioner who, as soon as she touches you, it's like, like your body just comes alive, right? And it's electric when that person touches you. I don't have as much of that through touch because mine is my gaze, but yours might be your touch, right? Like how you can bring someone to a level of intimacy and ecstasy just by being near them, right? And so I think that a lot of body workers have that touch. Right? So is it the sound of your voice? Is it the touch of your hand? Is it the look in your eye? Is it the way you use your tools? Right? So that could be another way that you transfer code, is through your crystal tools that you work with people. That could be another way that you translate code. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And so I might be transmitting code to you through my eyes, but you might be receiving the code through your ears, and because that's your preferred method of receiving, right? And isn't that interesting? And Lorian's saying massage therapist here, but isn't that, and Maria's saying her husband says she has a very soothing touch. Isn't that interesting? And this is exactly right. So Kenneth says, I wonder if it's the same for me. People are always drawn to me, say I have a glow, I'm always positive. If you're hearing those things from people, I want to be near you, I can't get enough of you, I want you to touch me, and I don't even know why I want you to touch me. Can you just keep talking to me? Just keep looking at me, just keep. That's because you're translating code. You're transmitting code, and it's healing them, and they know it, but they don't know why or how. They just want you not to leave. And so there's a lot of ethics around this. And I want to say this quickly because, Norma, I couldn't agree with you more, because I actually think the more we're on our devices, the less this happens, except that I'm able to transmit code to a lot more people because of the internet. And I'm still able, I hope you feel it, but like when I look in the camera right now, I am setting the intention of complete intimacy with you so that you will be open to receive everything that I'm going to share with you tonight. That's my pure intention. And I think you can receive it right through that camera right there, just as much as you could if you were standing here in the room with me right now. So I really believe that in so many ways, the internet has opened us to a new level of conscious awareness and connection. But you have to decide how you want to communicate with people and how open you want to be. The other thing about transmitting code is it leaves you a little vulnerable, because you do have to allow your energy field to be open enough that you can send and receive and be a transmitter. And that becomes a choice that you have to make. But there are words behind the words. And this is why too. So the ethics of this are as follows. Really be clear about your intentions for doing this work. There are people whose words behind their words are not well-intentioned. And so you can be listening to one thing, but actually be receiving quite something else. And you have to be really aware of that. The good news is that you have automatic spirit protection all the time. And the other thing is people will reveal themselves to you. So over time, if someone is dark, if someone's intentions are not good, at some point you're going to see that and feel it. And you'll have a lived experience of it. You know, spirit will try to warn you, but then eventually you'll have the lived experience of it. You won't need any more warnings. So always listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. I'm always very conscious of the words behind my words. And when I don't know what the words behind my words are, I always ask my spirit guides to filter so that only messages for the highest good of all who will receive will be transmitted. That's the ethics. That's the responsibility of being a bearer of light codes and a transmitter of those codes. You can ask your spirit guides not to allow you to receive codes that are not in alignment with your highest good or what you're able to receive, transmit, allow, and integrate at this time. So you always have control over what you agree to receive too. So I want you to be careful. But that's one of the reasons, even use your intuition when you're watching YouTube videos and stuff like that, because there's all kinds of God knows who, God knows what on there. I've seen some of it and I've had to shut it off, like where they're saying one thing, but the words behind the words, they're light codes they're transmitting. Some pretty scary stuff. So you have to use your discernment and use your gifts to be able to understand where things are coming from. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the not fun part, but I had to say it because it's important for you to know. And I will tell you something. In my world, I don't deal in dichotomies a lot, but I will tell you this. There's light and there's dark. It's just a truth in the universe. One of the fundamental Hermetic principles is the principle of polarity. And so for every condition or quality, there is the opposite. And there are people who are vibrating and transmitting dark code. And you have to decide how much of that you're going to be willing to tolerate. I've seen it on Facebook even, and I've seen people start groups with dark code, and I've seen people I know join groups of dark code. And I just think, you know what, good luck with that. And it always bears itself out. You know what I mean? It always reveals itself. So you can decide to participate in that, but even your spirit guides will pull you away from it because it's ultimately not going to be in alignment with your highest good on this planet. Okay. It's a good question, Gina. So Gina says, the definition of light codes are the words behind the words. The definition of light codes are your personal frequency transmissions that you are here on this planet right now to communicate to others on this planet at this time. Your light codes are your fingerprints. They are your personal frequency transmissions. And everybody has codes. Okay, so let's talk about what codes are. I want to kind of keep this in order because I know it can be a complex subject and I don't want to overwhelm you. So let's go back to what codes are. Okay, light codes are languages, but one of the most important things for you to recognize truly is that spoken languages are just one kind of language. And in many ways, the languages that we speak are the most limited languages that we have access to. Your gemstones are a language, okay? Your essential oils and your herbs are a language. The way you move your body and your hips is a language. The way you kiss is a language. The way you touch is a language. The way you smell, the way your body smells is a language. Everything is a language. And so when you think about the actual words that you say, I'm going to tell you, I think that's about 10% of the code that you transmit is actually a verbal code. I think 90%, thank you for that. Yes, yoga is another way. Sign language, ASL, is another language, right? These are all codes. The symbols, the poses, right? Everything. In Reiki, think of the symbols that we use in the transmission of Reiki energy, right? Like all of these are code. And so at any one time, you're transmitting multiple levels and layers of codes through your touch, through your voice, through the way you smell, through the way you carry yourself. I mean, even think about the way you walk into a room. And here's an example. I'm going to give you some kind of like, I'm going to give you some mundane examples just to really drive home some of these points because I think it'll be easy for you to remember. So in the process of researching light codes, I found somebody, and when I saw her avatar, I was like, you know, this person has powerful codes. I can tell just by looking at her. And so I was interested. I went to her website. I clicked on her website. I was sort of looking through. I was reading things, and I was like, yeah, I feel the power of her vibration. And then I clicked on a video. And here her avatar, right? How she presents her physical light codes are power and presence. I click on the video and she shrunk. It was like, I don't know where her power went, but her voice was not aligned. Her posture was not aligned. You know, her presence was not aligned. She was not in any way physically aligned with the power of the codes that she had the potential to translate and transmit. And so sometimes what you have to realize is you can grow into your codes. And sometimes it takes a real boost of confidence, right? So as soon as I clicked on that and she shriveled, I was like, I don't know who I've been reading. There's one person I've been reading, and one person whose pictures I've been seeing, and one person whose frequencies I've been receiving through her website. And then there's a second person who has no confidence, who's showing herself to me on video. And isn't that interesting? And I thought, wouldn't that be interesting feedback too, right? To give her, like, whoa, you have everything open to you. And yet when the camera goes on, you fizzle, right? But I also think that's part of growing into your gifts and really feeling confident in what you know. How many of you think to yourself that you know a lot, right? And you've had a lot of really powerful experiences. But if you had to actually go on video or on camera or live somewhere on television and share those with people, how many of you would be supremely confident to do that and say, yes, without a shadow of a doubt, I believe in light codes. This is how we transmit them. And this is why they're going to shape and change our planet right now. You know, a lot of people the camera would go on and they would go, you know, and the batteries would go out. So I think part of it is really having trust and faith that all of your spiritual experiences are real. You don't have to apologize for them. You don't have to qualify them. You don't have to explain them to people. And they didn't come from you, so you don't have to rationalize where they came from. You just simply have to show up. Do you know what I mean? And say, this is my lived experience, and I'm here to share it with you. And I hope that it moves you or inspires you in a powerful way, and sit in your power like that. But again, it's like, you know, there's even code for empowerment. In fact, power is number 8 of our 22 light codes that we're going to activate tonight. So I want you to even be thinking about this, right? How can you sit more fully and more deeply in your own power as a light worker? And how can your light codes enable that? And in fact, how can you even activate a code to enable that if that's one of the places that you struggle? I see you, Don Fisher, in Mobile, Alabama. I was pleasantly surprised. I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where this is a couple of years ago, but where I was like, you know, I wonder if Chattanooga has a thriving kind of metaphysical community. And they do. There are lots of places throughout the country now, even in the Deep South, where we tend to think, you know, the metaphysical is sort of not as alive. But there's a lot of pockets and places where people are really bringing the light to shadow places. Okay. So light codes are languages. They are energy patterns, sacred geometries, sound waves, and frequencies. Remember that most languages, especially the powerful languages, are not spoken. They are visual, they are symbolic, they are spiritual languages. They are not languages that you would speak to another person in complete sentences. And so allow yourself the gift of thinking about language in different ways. Okay. Your codes do a couple of things. Codes facilitate and accelerate the ascension of the soul. Like I said, right now we are in a 3-dimensional human experience. You cannot have blood and bone and be outside of the 3rd dimension. Not fully, okay? You can access the 4th dimension and 5th dimension, which are the dimensions of time and space. So here we have time and space. When you move into 4 and 5D, first you get rid of time, then you get rid of space, okay? And then you can ascend even to 6D and up to as far as 12D. Some people have seen 22D, and then there are even dimensions beyond that. I don't think any of us even really fully know. But my point is that there are multiple dimensions, and as long as you are blood and bone, you cannot fully escape 3D. You can have 4D and 5D experiences, though, where you let go of some of the constraints of time. In other words, what would it mean for there not to be a past, a present, and future? What if all of those were happening now? So that, and I always use the motherhood example, but so that through light codes, I could simultaneously experience my daughter as an infant and as an elderly woman. in one moment. I've had those experiences because I've requested them. I've requested to see my children both as infants and as elderly people, and to hold them in both moments. And so I've had those experiences. I'm very grateful for them. But can you imagine? So I had to move into 5D because I had to be able to let go of the time continuum. And then the space continuum is there's no difference between you and anyone else in the universe at any time. And so you can quickly be in Los Angeles, and then in Lima, Peru, and then in Heraklion, Crete, and then in Marbella, Spain, and then to wherever you want to be in the world, and then back to Los Angeles. Or you can be in all those places simultaneously at once. And so I can be with my mother who's ill while I'm with my children, putting them to sleep, and with my cousin, in Greece who's struggling. And I can be present to all three of those spaces at once by letting go of my third dimensional constraints with regard to time and space. Does that make sense? And so, but this isn't just me, this is you. You can do this. I will tell you, this is the key to freedom. Everything we're talking about right now. And I'm going to say one more thing that might sort of like unlock a door for you. When you are having a real problem in 3D, okay, like let's say it's a problem with one of your children's teachers, or with a colleague at work, or with your partner, or with your aging parent, or with, your teenager who's being a jerk. When you're having like a real-time problem in 3D, the next time that happens, I want you to imagine yourself, you, in another place, and you can even create that place for yourself. I want you to imagine yourself in another place where you're outside of space and time. So you're no longer locked by time. So if you're fighting with your teenager, imagine that teenager is 80 years old, or 2 months old, or some other age. So you don't have the time constraint. And then imagine you don't have the space constraint. So you can travel anywhere at any time with that person, any place, to take them out of that dynamic. It allows you to see your small 3D world from a much bigger perspective. And it takes all the anxiety out of it, because the reality is it is going to be okay. No matter what you're going through right now, it will resolve itself. And it has already resolved itself in 5D, where we don't have time or space. But you don't know that because you're in 3D. So I almost want you to like take yourself out of this, like whatever bullshit bad experience you're having, pull yourself all the way out to 5D, see that it's not a big deal. It's just your mortal self sees it as a big deal, but it's not a big deal. A month from now, it won't matter anymore. And then go back and then talk to your child, and then have the argument with your partner, and then talk to your boss. But do it from a place of knowing that it doesn't really matter, because in the big scheme of things, it's already unimportant, right? Like the outcome doesn't really matter. It's not going to shape your ultimate existence of your soul once you leave the space-time continuum. That's right, Shannon. So Shannon says, when they go low, you go high. That's right. So, and 3D problems are all go low. 3D problems are all, let's talk about how bad this is, how sad this is, how awful this is. Help me, help me, help me. Please send good energy. Things couldn't be worse, right? That's all 3D. 5D is like, can't even perceive why that's a problem. Because in the bigger scheme, it has no impact. And so the 5D is like, okay, I understand you're down here saying all of this. Can you imagine, right? Like talking to yourself, I understand that you're so upset, but just trust me. 100 years from now, this doesn't matter. Like pipe down a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like don't have that argument with your spouse that's going to create karmic debt. Don't do that. Don't say those mean words. Don't say those unkind things. Don't spread those rumors. Don't treat people badly. That stuff is going to harm your soul. But this problem that you're in right now is not going to last forever. So see it from this sort of otherworldly perspective. Okay, so light codes allow you to do that. Here's what I want you to know about what happens when you're born, okay? And you can go ahead and keep asking questions in the feed. I'm noticing it, but unless it's something really important to where we are, I'm kind of continuing on my trajectory. But I'm really glad that you guys are asking the questions. So here's what I want you to know about what happens when you're born. Before you are born, you sign a soul contract in agreement with all the other souls who will incarnate with you in this lifetime and agree to do the work with you that you are here to do. You sign all of that, complete that. That's sealed before you come into this lifetime. As you come through the birth canal in your mother, I truly believe it actually happens during the birth process as the mother is contracting and delivering the child. I believe that the 3D veil of forgetfulness, which is what we call it, descends. And all of a sudden you forget how many lives you had, where you've been before, all the wisdom you gained, how old you are, how wise you are, how beautiful you are, how powerful you are, all the tools you've had, all the palaces you've lived in, all of the genders that you've been, all of the people you have loved, gone. Doesn't matter how you came in. C-section, out the regular way, doesn't matter. The 3D veil of forgetfulness descends upon you before you take your first breath of air. And from that moment on, you are at the mercy of what you are able to remember. And the light codes, okay, are your access point to your memory. This is how you remember who you are. And you spend the rest of your life doing it, okay? Some babies are aware. I came in quite aware and not very happy about it. I had colic for 9 months. There's a whole theory about colicky babies, that they're highly sentient and they're angry, and they're babies who signed contracts against their will. I had colic for 9 months. My daughter had colic for 9 months. There seems to be something about the women who came through my line coming in rather angry. The men seem to come through real happy and sweet and kind, but the women come through pissed off with stomach pain because it's our power center, right? Colic is an agitation of the power center in babies. And so I've heard of that. A lot of highly, highly, highly empathic, gifted, spiritual women in particular have been colicky babies and have delivered colicky daughters. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, so we come in, we're in the cervix, we're in the vaginal flipping canal, or we're being cut out of our mother's stomach. The veil of forgetfulness descends. And then what happens, right? And then what happens? There are 2 levels of light. Bear with me, you guys, with my voice. I'm sorry about that. I want you to think about it this way. There are 2 levels of light, okay? There are descending levels of light that are coming from source and descending to earth. They're lowering their frequency. And there are ascending levels of light coming up from Gaia and raising their frequency to align the planet, okay? And human life happens in the middle between the descending forces of light and the ascending forces of light. And those are the forces of light that hold us in this center stage, or this middle world, to use a shamanic term, which is considered to be the domain of the sun. Okay, so there's the domain of the light, or source domain. There's the domain of the sun, which is Middle Earth, or the human experience. And then there's the crystalline domain under us, inside the center of the planet, and that is the ascending force. And so the crystals raise a vibration to increase the levels of conscious awareness of human beings, okay? But yet there are spiritual forces, descending forces, that are meant to be a counterbalance and a counterpoint to keep us locked in a human 3D experience so that we can finish our human soul contracts. Does that make sense? This is an important point, and it's just become very clear to me in the last year or so, but I want to make sure this is crystal clear because it explains a lot. And so we have ascending forces and descending forces that in effect hold us, center us, right, in this 3D time-space continuum, okay? Okay, so here we are. And so sometimes the frequency rises, sometimes we feel the compression, right? So you get uplifted by people who are trying to bring the light and bring the beauty and lift you, lift you, lift you. And yet there are counter pressures, descending forces, right? Grounding forces, but also forces of fear and forces of anxiety and forces of dependency and forces of constriction and retaliation that keep us alive in a human container, If we were to up too much, we would ascend to 5D and we would not exist. Our vibration would be so high that we wouldn't be able to be in a human container. If we were down too much, we would also lose our lives, right? The container would collapse. There wouldn't be enough of the delicate balance to hold us in the middle. And so as we become aware of these counterbalances, a lot of us get frustrated because we start to see it as a game. Does that make sense to you? I've had these moments where I'm like, are you kidding me right now? This is a game. This is a game and you've got me right here, right? And it gets even trickier when you start thinking about, so how would you get out of this game, right? Like, spiritual people don't commit suicide because we have fear of consequences of what happens after death, right? And so if we want to get out of this game, how do we get out of this game, right? And so I think a lot of times what happens, this is just my theory about light codes and our own evolution, is sometimes people do want out and they set a subconscious intention to be released from this, which is why tragedies happen. Even if it's a subconscious desire to get out. That's why you see people living with long-term diseases, I think, in many cases, because they want out and they haven't articulated how quickly they want out. They've just said, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay. And so one of the things I want to tell you tonight is if you want to experience total healing, you have to commit to doing work within this continuum. You have to use Alexandra's words, you have to realize the illusion and appreciate it for what it is, which is you came to this life to have these random experiences, because on the other side, when you die, and this I know for sure, because not only did I have a near-death experience, but I have done ayahuasca multiple times now. Let me tell you, this is true. Are you ready? When you die, you go back to the oneness and there is no chaos. There is no necessarily free will. There is just unity. You came back because you wanted random. You came back because you wanted free will. You wanted to see what you could do. Okay? You came back because you wanted this. You wanted to be stuck and push and pull. Because when you die, there's none of this. You're just back part of the matrix. And so you came back for this. So how do you find the beauty in this? How do you understand why it is that you're here for this? Because your piece of this is different from my piece of this, is different from Christine's pieces of this, is different from Heidi Kelly's pieces of this. Each one of us are holding some different part of this container. Is it a facade? Yes. It is. I do believe it's something of a game, but I think you chose it. And so now we're here and what are we going to do with it? Are you ready? Okay, I'm glad this is making sense to you. And so we are caught between ascending and descending frequencies. How do we access the codes? Okay, so now we've talked about what light codes are. We've talked about how do they work, which is they facilitate your ability to activate your part of the mystery, the reason why you are here stuck between the levels, okay? They're the key to help you understand what your piece of this mystery is, okay? Light codes come in sound, symbol, shape, numbers, keys, and codes. When I first, I'm about to activate the 22 frequencies, by the way. So we'll talk about tools in just a minute, and then we're actually going to go in. When I did my first ayahuasca journey, it was very interesting. It was a long journey. And I would say halfway to 2/3 in, and by the way, I don't think you have to have an ayahuasca journey to understand light codes. It was just one of the ways that my teachers used, one of the methods they used to communicate the how, okay, or what these things are. And so it was about halfway, 2/3 of the way through the journey, and a shaman came over to me and said, I need to work with you separately. You're about to step into a certain part of the journey, and I'm going to be able to help you through it. They're going to recode you. And so we went into a separate room. My particular journey, this one was about 6 hours. So this is about 3 hours in. We went into a separate room and I laid on the bed and she was behind me. She had her hands on my back and she said, they're taking you into the recoding chamber. And I remember when I closed my eyes, it literally was a chamber and it was like a long, I can't stand tight spaces, but I felt very comfortable. And there was like a long, open, like chamber where they had my body on this bed, this like crystalline bed, and they pushed me in, and they would pull me out and push me back in, and pull me out and push me back in. And I was laying on my stomach, and they were doing the recoding through my back down to my spine. And what they showed me was the DNA column. They showed me the actual DNA. And it was a series of symbols and numbers. And so all I heard was, it was a spirit guide behind me, behind the shaman who was behind me, saying coding and recoding, coding and recoding. And as they were pulling me and pushing me and pulling me and pushing me, I could see these codes being put into my spine. It was just like an MRI, except not crappy. I mean, MRIs are awful and there's like big banging sounds. This was not like that. And they actually were showing me the DNA strands and how they were pulling code out of the original DNA and replacing it with new code. I share that with you because can you imagine, right? Can you imagine? And I really believe this is true. So then when I learned all about Lemuria and how we had multiple strands of DNA when we were in the Atlantean and Lemurian civilizations. And so if we ever got sick, we went to, there was always a strand of completely fully healthy DNA of ours, always in existence. And whenever we got sick, we would go and harvest from the original solid strand the code for the healing of whatever was making us sick. And we would transplant. So we could always go to our fully complete DNA strand and pull the healing code for whatever was dysfunctional in the human iteration of it, the 3D iteration of it, if that makes sense. So it reminded me of that. It was like, okay, so somewhere there is a fully healed, whole, well, physically fit, strong, happy, positive, optimistic, sensual, beautiful, activated, alive, complete you. And all you have to do is imagine the dimensions of him or her and go in and harvest the code and just pull it forward. And I really think it's as easy as that. Isn't that interesting? And so as we activate these codes, I'm going to ask that all of the light codes that you need to be healed, whole, and well in this moment and in perfect alignment with the iteration of you that is perfectly whole, perfectly well, perfectly fit, perfectly happy, perfectly at peace. I'm going to ask that you be shown tonight how to pull the code from that perfect iteration of you into any places of disease or disharmony in your body right now. So good. Well, start here. You may not need ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is for people who don't know how to do this without it. I'm telling you. If I had been able to do this without it, I would have done it without it. If I had somebody who could have said to me what I'm saying to you tonight, I don't think I would have pursued it. I just couldn't find anybody to tell me this stuff. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why it's free for you and Holistic Healer, because you guys have to know this stuff. You're going to be going out there and helping people, and you've got to be able to operate from this place. Okay. The star Sirius, Sirius, is the star that is responsible for all light code transmission and activation. Sirius is known as the evening star. It was the star that guided the wise men to find the Christ child. Sirius was a star that guided our Egyptian ancestors and our ancestors from the ancient civilizations. And I believe Sirius is a stargate through which all of the higher dimensional frequencies that those of us who do this work with, I believe that those frequencies all come from Sirius, the Sirius star itself. And so tonight, I want you to call upon that energy. I'm actually going to take you into the Sirius Stargate right now. And we are going to activate 22 different light codes for you tonight. I want to invite you to use a crystal to access the Stargate. This is the pendant crystal talisman that I always work with for this purpose. It's an celestial and it is an anhydro. It has ancient water inside of it. Anhydros are particularly attuned to light codes because they actually have the ancient frequencies sometimes millions of years old in that living water, still alive within them. So anhydros have special code that they themselves translate and reveal, which is why crystal people love anhydros. So if you have an anhydro, that would be great. If you have any kind of quartz talisman, that would be great. Quartz is so good for this work because it's programmable. It knows how to hold a frequency, maintain a frequency, establish a frequency, release a frequency. So quartz is perfect. But anything you have, if you are a teacher, a Reiki practitioner, a massage therapist, if you're going to be working with clients, jewelry is great to use because you can always wear it. And then that's your activation piece. That's your transmitter crystal. It's going to hold all the code and transmit that code. Lemurian quartz is beautiful. Tibetan quartz is beautiful. Go get something. Go get a tool, is what I would say. And choose a tool and let your guides just direct you. I'm also going to hold on to this wand, which is a recent acquisition from Louis of Stonehenge or Stone Age in Glastonbury, because I think this is an activating wand too. And so I'm going to be working with that as well. Merkaba would be beautiful. A ring is lovely. Amphibole is angelic and beautiful. So I love that as an option. Fluorite is perfect. It's a clarity stone. And so that's a beautiful option. Rose quartz is going to allow you to activate codes for love. And so I think that's a beautiful option as well. Spirit quartz, forget about it. Perfect option. Aura is perfect too, because aura is a cleanser of the auric field. And so it's also going to clear the energies while you're activating. You can use any perfume or any oil, anything that speaks to you. I haven't made you... I actually did make you an Activate perfume, but you probably haven't received it yet because it's with your Ostara tools. And so I haven't made you a full activation scent outside of that set. So anything that you're feeling called to is perfect. Super 7 is great. I'm going to be using my wand and my necklace. So those are my two tools for tonight. I'm keeping it simple. And you should too. Shaman Dreamstone, Skullicite, V perfume, perfect. Love it. I'm using Ka. I've been anointing with Ka. If you're in Arrow Magic, that's Ka is about as close as you can get to the magic that we're talking about tonight. So, are you guys ready? Kefi is perfect too. Kefi's so good. Okay, so tonight, roll your shoulders back. It's going to be a quick activation, but a thorough activation. And so we call upon all of the guardians of all of the gateways to be present to us this evening. And as we enter the Sirian star portal, we greet all of the guides, all of the star beings from that dimension. We thank you for watching us and watching over us. We thank you for trusting that we are awakening. We thank you for the constant reassurance that we are not alone. We thank you for the perspective that comes from those star dimensions. It reminds us that our mortal 3D problems are not as serious or severe as we often think they are, and that they all will be solved and unraveled in perfect time. Thank you for that perspective. And so as we enter this Sirian Stargate, our request tonight to all of the Sirian star beings, all of the ascended masters, healers, and teachers of those higher dimensions, we come to you tonight to ask you to activate on our behalf the 22 sacred light codes. And I'm going to read off the name of each light code, what each light code does. And I'm going to ask that your spirit guides and the guardians of this Stargate translate that light code to you in a symbol, in a scent, in a feeling, or just simply in an energy that they translate into the piece or the tool that you are working with. And so when you're ready, we will begin. I love it. And so the first code, Sirian star guides, that we call upon you to activate tonight is the beauty code. Activate within us the code of beauty to help us translate beauty, become beauty, experience beauty, to know beauty, to appreciate beauty, to be able to create beauty in the world. Help us to embody and express that code for the highest good of all beings, and so it is. The second code that we ask you to translate for us tonight and activate is the transformation code. Star beings of this Sirian Stargate, we ask that you translate the light code for transformation to us. Help us to embody and activate this code in all that we see, say, and do. The third code that we ask you to activate tonight is the healing code. Help us tonight to activate the healing code, to activate and embody this code in everything that we see, say, and do. The fourth code is the intuition code. Help us tonight to activate our inner knowing, our intuition codes, the codes of our inner sight and inner vision. Help us to activate and embody these codes in everything that we see, say, and do. The fifth code is the releasing code, letting go of anything that is no longer serving us, helping us to be able to release on behalf of others, helping us to activate and embody this code in everything that we see, say, and do. The sixth code is the wisdom code. Help us to activate and embody wisdom in all that we do. Wisdom about the past, present, and future. Help us to understand what has happened and what will happen in service of the greater unfolding of events across our planet, and help us to acknowledge wisdom in everything that we see, say, and do. The seventh code is integration. Help us tonight to unlock the integration codes, Sirian star guides. Help us to embody and activate these codes in everything that we see, say, and do. The eighth code is power. Help us to understand and activate the power codes tonight to help us experience power, translate power, embody power in beautiful, feminine, and yet strong, powerful, and decisive ways. Help us to activate and embody these codes in everything that we see, say, and do. The ninth code is truth. We ask tonight that you help us to activate the truth code. Help us to be able to discern truth in what people see and say and in their actions. Help us to embody truth, to live truth, to openly communicate our truth in everything that we see, say, and do. The 10th code is passion. Help us to activate the passion codes. Help us to embody passion. Help us to demonstrate passion to ourselves and to each other in everything that we see, say, and do. The next code is union. The 11th code is union. Help us to activate union codes so that we are connected to each other, to our twin flames and soulmates, that we attract those energies, that we receive those energies, that we never feel alone. We embody those energies, that when people look at us, they can see, sense, and feel the union, and help us to embody it in everything that we see, say, and do. The 12th code is the communication code. Help us to communicate these codes in healthy and productive ways. Help us to communicate through our vision, through the sound of our voice, and through the touch of our hands. Help us to communicate with the scents that are around us, the colors and the textures, the clothing that we wear, the way we smile, the way we use our hands, the way we share meals together, the way we offer love to each other, and everything that we see, say, and do. The 13th code is alignment. Help us to activate the alignment codes. Help us to be in alignment, to reflect alignment, to become aligned in everything that we see, say, and do. The 14th code is protection. Help us to access the protection codes tonight. Help us to translate those codes, to embody those codes. Help us to be a force of protection such that when we're around anyone we know or love, that they are automatically protected by virtue of our presence. Help them to feel safe and comfortable with us and around us. Help us to feel safe and comfortable at night as we sleep. And while we're in our prayer spaces, our sacred spaces, help us to remember that we are never alone. Help us to feel and sense and translate protection in all we see, say, and do. The 15th code is peace. Help us to translate the peace codes tonight. Let us be forces of peace in our world at this time. Help us to activate and embody peace in all that we see, say, and do. The 16th code is growth. Help us to activate the growth code tonight. Help us to grow what needs to grow. Help us to be a force for growth for others so that when they're around us, everything that they desire grows and expands. Help us to activate growth energies in all that we see, say, and do. The 17th code is the manifestation code. 7 + 1 is 8, which is the number of infinite progress and potential. Help us to activate the manifestation codes in everything that we see, say, and do. Help us not only to manifest on our own behalf, but to help to manifest the visions and dreams of everyone around us, such that just by being in our presence, their own dreams and visions come to pass in perfect time and divine alignment with the highest good of all beings on this planet at this time. The 18th code is happiness. Help us to activate the happiness code tonight. The code of joy, the code of laughter and freedom, the code of who gives a fuck, because life is short. Help us to be fully present to the beauty, the laughter, the silliness, the strangeness, the goofiness, the fun, the craziness of our lives. Help us to be teachers of that. Help us not to grow old and let go of those things, but help us to remember how central they are to our power and to our possibility and all that we see, say, and do. The 19th code is success. Help us to activate the success code tonight so that all of our ventures are successful. Help us to take the flippin' lid off the box. Whatever you want, may it be yours. I wish for you all that you desire, the big, big, big dreams you have, because I think you should have it all. If I could control what you would receive, I would deny you nothing. I would adorn you in all the jewels, and I would house you in elaborate spaces, and I would bathe you in scented waters, and I would dress you in the finest clothing. Help us to receive the gifts of success and to be able to enjoy them with each other in all that we see, say, and do. The 20th code is love. Help us to activate the love code. Love should be around you all the time. Help us to activate codes of love, true codes of softness and sensual perception in all that we see, say, and do. Help us to be love and embody love. Help us to smell like love and look like love. Help us to open ourselves and each other to love in all ways. The 21st code is prosperity. Help us to unlock the prosperity codes. Help us to unlock the codes to financial prosperity and wealth beyond our wildest dreams. Help us to realize that all beings are entitled to prosperity and to never have a financial worry. Help us to open those floodgates of prosperity, not just for ourselves, but for each other. And so that just by being around each other, we open the doors to prosperity on a deeper and more profound level. I see you and I send you a river of prosperity tonight, and I receive one in return. And all that we see, say, and do. And the 22nd code is desire. Tonight we open the code to desire, to receiving all that we desire, to knowing what we desire, to communicating what we desire, and to allowing what we desire to come to pass in perfect time and divine alignment. We open a code to desire so that we can also be a force for the desires of others, so that when they see us, they feel their desires, they channel their desires, they honor their desires, they live their desires, they enjoy their desires, they become their desires, they translate their desires fearlessly, powerfully, with abandon, like it's their birthright. That is the 22nd code. Desire, of course, is the force that creates all things. Everything begins with your desire. In fact, life itself cannot begin without an expression of desire. And so from the moment you were conceived to this very moment, you are an expression of the universe desiring itself. And so I honor you tonight. I call in these 22 codes. May they have been translated, open, and activated for you in ways that you will understand. May you live and embody these codes all the days of your life for everyone you know and everyone you love and all the lives you touch. May you do so for the highest good of all beings at all times. And together we say, Amen Aho, and so it is. Amen Aho, and so it is. Beauty, transformation, healing, intuition, release, wisdom, integration, power, truth, passion, union, communication, alignment, protection, peace, growth, manifestation, happiness, success, love, prosperity, desire. It is done. It is done. It is done. Did you get some good codes? Was it good for you? Okay. We've gone a little long, so I don't know how much time for Q&A there will be, but we can always do a part 2. I want to say a couple more things for you, see if there's just a room for a few questions, and then I'm going to wrap up for tonight. Sherry says she's high, so my work here is done. If I got at least one of you high a little bit tonight, I have been very successful. Okay. A few other things I want to say to you. Our planet is a grid. I think you know this. Our planet is a grid. These, by the way, the codes I gave you tonight, there are no standard codes. These are the codes that I have been given and have activated within myself, which I always assume means that I have permission to activate these within you. These are the 22 codes that I personally work with and have led me to a lot of beauty and success in my life. And so by translating and activating these codes through you, these are my 22. I'm sure there are others. These are the codes that I carry that I'm able to translate and to offer you. Okay, so here's what I want to tell you. Your planet is a grid. The ley lines are a grid. If you took GemWise at the early part of this year, we talked about ley lines. They create vortex points. Our planet is a grid. And so one of the things that you can do is you can actually create a crystalline grid in your home, wherever you are, wherever you live. You can do it in your office if you prefer, but most people do it at home. And you can actually set the intention to connect your grid, to lock your grid into the planetary grid, which connects you to that force field. Okay. That's the next step of this work. So if you want to know how to take it further, set up a planetary grid and set the intention that your grid will lock into or attach into the broader planetary grid, the crystalline grid of the planet, which will help to create a portal for these energies to continue to flow through you. Okay. So that would be the next step. I love that, actually. Lisa Fisher said, what about a new series of Cosmic Comfort focused on each of the 22 light codes? That can be very interesting too. I really like that idea. Okay, let's see if there's anything else I want to tell you. Singing bowls activate light codes. You guys know what singing bowls are, right? I can just show you an example really quickly. Here's a beautiful singing bowl. Singing bowls are powerful activators of light codes. Okay, so singing bowls are important tools. When you create your grid, you should set an intention. This is what my spirit guides told me to tell you today, okay? Set the intention for spaciousness. This is the intention that you should set. If you feel anxious or sad in your life, it's probably because you don't have enough space. Maybe it's not enough physical space, or maybe it's not enough emotional space, or not enough sensual space, but you need space. So set the intention for spaciousness of your heart, that your heart will have space to grieve, to love, to feel. Set the intention for spaciousness of your mind, that you'll have space to think and have your own thoughts and your own beliefs and your own views. Set the intention for spaciousness of your body, that you'll be free to move, okay? Set the intention for spaciousness of your connection to source, that maybe your relationship to God will expand in some way, or Goddess or Creator. And then set the connection, or set the intention for spaciousness of connection to all forms of life, that you'll reimagine your relationship to other people, other men, other women, other relations in your family, other light beings in your community. That was the last thing I wanted to tell you. Remind yourself, these are your affirmations. I have room, I have time, I have nourishment, I have trust, I have love, I have ease, and I have flow. Let me say that one more time. And say it with me. I'll go slow so that you can affirm this with me. These are just some of the affirmations and intentions that my guides told me to tell you as we were preparing for tonight. So let's say it together. Are you ready? I have room. I have room. I have time. I have nourishment. I have trust. I have love. I have ease. And I have flow. I have flow. Okay, and the last thing I want to tell you, and then I'll just take a couple of questions just for maybe 5 minutes before we have to sign off. The last thing I want to tell you is this. Paulette's too high to type, and that's okay. You stay right where you are. Last thing I want to tell you is this. A lot of people think that to go from 3D, which is, you know, flesh and blood and bone and sitting here in this room with these lights, a lot of people think that to go from 3D level of awareness to 4D or 5D, like we were talking about earlier, requires them to either die or not be human anymore or not have a physical experience. The one thing I really want you to take away from tonight is it's actually possible for you to ascend, to move into a higher dimensional experience of your life that isn't so tied up in the day-to-day, which is a miserable way to live, honestly. You need a more spiritual experience of your reality. It's possible to do that and have nothing about your physical world change. You can still be human and get dressed in the morning, but yet have a higher dimensional awareness. Look around your life and realize you're too stuck in the details and you cannot enjoy your life or have the fullest spiritual experience if you're so stuck in the details and you think every little thing matters all the time when it doesn't. You're going to be much happier. You're going to be much more peaceful. You're going to be much less anxious if you helicopter up for a minute and realize that all the BS of your life that's got your attention right now is fleeting and doesn't really matter. It'll allow you to come back to what's happening with your kids or your partner or your boss or your aging mother or whatever it is with a lot more tolerance and patience and beauty, because you're going to realize it doesn't really matter. Don't tell the muggles that. They think it really matters. You have to know it doesn't matter. What matters is what will happen 100 years from now when you talk about that situation in spirit form and say, you know, I didn't engage because I was ascending and it didn't matter. And then the other spirit will say, that was good. It's good you didn't engage. You were right. I should have ascended faster, but you know, you were ahead of me. So I learned from you. But can you imagine those spirit conversations one day? Like, remember that bullshit you were trying to start? And I was like, I'm not playing that stuff on Facebook or whatever. And then I didn't engage and you thought I didn't support you. You know, like whatever. We'll have these spirit conversations one day and be like, you know what? You were right. Okay. So I see the question about weight loss. Let me say this quickly because this could be part of part 2. The more I do this interdimensional work, the less physical nourishment I'm finding that I need, which is why I posted on my personal Facebook page today about breatharianism, which is the idea that there are other ways to nourish your body other than food. You cannot replace water. We are water beings. But actually, the more spiritual work that you do, the more breath work that you do, because pranayama breath work is actually the way I learned about breatharianism and reducing my caloric intake. But I have found that when I eat too much, it's harder for me to do spiritual work. But here's the dichotomy. Sometimes empaths eat too much because we're trying to handle our feelings, and food makes us feel, at least for a moment, like we're a little bit more grounded. Except the problem is food weighs us down and it makes it harder for spirit to communicate with us. And the bigger our body mass is, the more distance there is between us and the etheric realms. And so one of the things I want to suggest to you is really digging into the spiritual work, journeying more, playing your singing bowls more, and seeing if you can lighten the amount and the quality of food that you're eating. In other words, less packaged stuff, more fresh stuff, more water, more green smoothies, food that's closer to its source and origin and lower quantities of it. You always want to make any kind of dietary or life changes in alignment with whatever your doctor suggests is best for you. But one of the things I have really found is the more I eat, the less I can hear. And I do think sometimes empaths eat more because we want to stop hearing. Have you ever noticed, since I've been very transparent in this whole class and kind of put myself out there, have you ever noticed that if you're a very spiritual person, your spiritual path kind of goes like this, where you're like, oh, I'm into it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to every class and I'm going to journey. And then it drops off and you're like, I'm not doing that anymore. Get rid of my crystals. I'm not doing it. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to really do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, nope, not doing it. I'm not going to class, not using my crystals, right? I'm laughing because it's all of us. If you think you're alone, you're not. It's like, right? And then we feel like a failure, like, forget it. I missed last month's ritual. Now I'm behind. Okay. That's exactly right. What does your weight do? Every time in my life that I have tried to push this stuff down, meaning pretend I don't hear the voices, you know what I mean? Pretend that, I don't really love magic and believe that the moon phases are powerful and want to do. Every time I push that stuff away, my weight fluctuates. And every time I come back to my spiritual work and I commit to it and I stop being afraid and I stop procrastinating, then my weight regulates, right? So it's like, how do we stop the roller coaster? And I think the primary way is, and I'm going to leave you with this, you got to start to see food for what it is. Your physical body is only here to carry your soul around for a few years. And the food that you eat, I mean, a breatharian, the school of thought there is you really don't need food. And I've lived, actually, I've only done it for a full week at a time, but with just drinking water and tea and green smoothies. It's a fast, basically. But I did extensive breath work and I never got hungry. So what does that tell you? It's possible to fill yourself up on spirit. It really is. But when you're so busy filling yourself up on cookies, you'll never know that because there's no space for spirit to be. Like you almost have to experience the physical hunger so that you can replace it with the mana, right? The spiritual food, which is not a hamburger. So here's what I'm going to suggest to you. Are you ready for a challenge? I really like a challenge, but I like a realistic challenge. Are you ready? Listen, girls and guys, I see you. If you think I haven't been right where you are, you're wrong. Okay, you ready for a challenge? Okay. So Bianca's asking, how do we use your tools for tonight? Your tools now are charged. Everything that you use tonight is charged with your light codes. You can take this and use it with clients. Like I could activate client crystals with this. I could activate other people's crystals with my wand, right? Just by touching them. Because this now is activated with all 22 of my light codes. So anything that touches this is also activated with those light codes. Always ask permission to share your light codes. People need to receive with permission. Okay, here's the challenge. You ready? I want you to take your caloric intake just down a notch. If you're eating a regular amount of calories per day, let's say 2,000 to 2,500, I want you to try removing like a snack or a light meal and see how you feel. Try removing it for a week. If you eat a muffin every morning, don't eat your muffin. If you eat ice cream every night, don't eat your ice cream. If you always have a snack around 4 p.m., don't have your 4 p.m. snack. Don't go crazy. Just take one thing out for 7 days and see if you don't notice, and don't replace it, but drink tea during that time or water to keep yourself hydrated. And just notice. Every time you take less food in, it leaves more space for source energy. Food is weighing you down. I don't want to sound too much like a conspiracy theorist, but they're using our food to adjust our thoughts, right? They're using our food to numb us out. They're using our toothpaste. They're using our deodorant. They're using our... It's always funny to me when people are worried about using their essential oils. Like their essential oils might not be healthy, but then they'll go out and eat Cheerios or go to McDonald's or, you know, eat mac and cheese, right? Like they're using our food. So try to get your food as close to the source as you can. Try to use as many natural options as you can. And when you can, take one thing out and reduce your caloric intake and don't replace it with anything that has calories and see how you feel. Just try for 7 days. I'm really serious. Have a little wine and a little champagne. I'm a hedonist at heart. Have a little good chocolate. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying take all the good things out, but don't have chips, don't have muffins, and don't have things with flour in them, and don't have just try to get back, right? Like even the gluten that you and I eat today is not the gluten that my Greek grandmother or your Italian grandmother, this is not the bread they used to eat, right? Our food is over glutenized, and it's really harming us. And I really do believe that they are using our food to shut us off from our deeper intuition. And I'm not going to participate in that. So if you want to kind of move with my flow, that's why I use apple cider vinegar, because it breaks down any complex compounds in your body, including stored fat. So I think apple cider vinegar is the key to everything. Hippocrates, who's the modern father, or the ancient Greek father, I should say, of modern medicine, Hippocrates, who's, you know, the Hippocratic Oath is named after him, is on record as saying he could cure anything in ancient Greece with apple cider vinegar or honey. Those were the only two things he had in his medicine cabinet, but he said he could cure anything. So apple cider vinegar, reduce your caloric intake, get your food as close to nature as possible, and drink tea and water, especially green tea or any kind of herbal tea, and see if you don't feel better. I really think it will bring you back in every way to everything that you need. Yeah, so I'll leave you with this. So apple cider vinegar is the cheapest, easiest way to get healthy, and you just go get, you need it with the mother, whatever brand you find, it has to have the mother, which is the source of all the vitamins and minerals. And what I do is I mix it with water. So I put about 2 teaspoons of ACV in a shot glass of water in the morning, knock it back. And I do it right before I go to bed too, twice a day. If you add lemon and cinnamon, it's even better, but you don't have to. Keep it really simple. That way you'll always do it. And it'll dissolve and break down stored fat, but it'll also dissolve and break down some of the plaque in different parts of your body that is really a result of the hardening minerals in your system that are preventing you from accessing the subtle bodies, which deepens your intuition, connects you to source, keeps you happier, more peaceful, more joyful, and all of that. It's all connected. It's all connected. Okay, you ready? Are you ready? You're going to commit? So I'm going to check back in with you in a week and see how you're feeling. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's class. I thoroughly enjoyed being with you. Any singing bowl works. Any singing bowl. You just need the frequency and the vibration. Any apple cider vinegar that has the mother works. Just keep it easy, you guys. Don't complicate this. But reduce how much you're eating. Meditate more, sleep more, have more sex. Include your ACV, play a singing bowl, and call me in the morning. Let me know how your light codes are working for you. I enjoyed you guys, and I'll see you very soon. If you want a part 2, let me know. I'll look to your feedback, and I'll see you later. Have a great evening, everybody.